Great. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Menopause Chats. And I'm delighted that you're watching today. And I'm delighted to have someone I've actually known for a very long time. We were talking before this is like, oh, we haven't actually spoken in about 30 years, but we've known each other for a long time. We've known each other for that long. So we're talking to Casey. And thank you so much for joining us today. Would love to hear from you, sort of where are you on your perimenopause? I think you're in the perimenopausal
I
journey.
am. Yeah, it's definitely kind of perimenopause. It's hard to get a physician to kind of, lock that down because they're like, "Well, you're still getting a period." And I'm like, "Yeah, but it's insane." And I don't think so. So it's definitely in the perimenopause stage. As far as that goes, who know? I don't know. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
nobody
I mean,
does.
really, like menopause is a date, right? It's like the day
Yeah,
when you've stopped having your period for 12 months. And if it
correct.
was 11 months and you got it on the 12th month, you start over. So, I love there's a doctor that says, hey, like if someone says that they think they're in perimenopause, believe them. Like, okay.
I have not had that experience, and it's been very frustrating because I went in. It's similar to what you had mentioned about going in thinking,
Yeah.
but for me, I went in night sweats, just weird feelings, not sleeping, didn't feel right, and weirdly, I ended up having a tumor
Oh,
on my ovary. Um, but I contributed that to perimenopause because of hormonal changes. This is it's a teratoma, one of those really fun ones where you can get like a tooth or hair in it.
no.
Super gross.
So when you were saying
But
medical stuff, that's what you meant.
yes. So I was born with it. Everybody, if you have one of these, you're born with it. And it just within, I have to say, 3 weeks, it went from nothing to 9 inches. It was
Oh,
huge.
wow.
And I had to have surgery. And that kind of set off a whole string of new and exciting medical issues. And I contributed to that weird hormone change that occurred. And it was like one day it was I was fine, and the next I wasn't.
Wow. Are you doing okay now?
I am. I'm still dealing with the. I'm
The
positive
medical.
it's perimenopause. So yeah, it's just this, but hormonally, it's weird.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting because they do say it's like very similar to, like hormone shifts of puberty, pregnancy, similar, like, you're just sort of all over the place. So, and I know we talked a little bit beforehand about parenting. And so how has parenting been in this journey? And like compared to other points in your life when you were parenting?
To be. Um, it's sorry, I'm just checking on him. Um, so kind of like what I talked about earlier, I parented at 20 and I was a young mom at 25. I took my kid to school and I was young. And then I had another one at 30 and I was right in the middle. And then I adopted at 41. And my son and I are 40 years apart in age now. And the difference is night and day. Um, and they'll tell you too. Um, he's got old parents. Um, when he was really little, he was in preschool, and his teachers were very worried about him. They're like, he holds his back a lot. And, when every time he gets off the floor, and I'm like, yeah, no, he fine. He got old parents. Because we would get up off the floor with him and go, oh, my back. So he was doing that at
Mirroring
school.
that. It's adorable and
So it's kind of
and
really
relatable.
yeah. Yeah, because I'm like, okay, yeah, he's gonna graduate and I'm gonna be really old. So I am both a young, a middle, and an old mom all at the
You've had
same
that
time.
experience. Does it feel different or like is it yeah, like how has it been different for you?
Um, with my first, um, I guess my dog wants to chime in.
Yeah.
Um,
Let me tell
with my with my first, who happens to be walking across the lawn right now, um, was my I called them my right hand man.
you.
Um, we did everything together. Uh, their dad was in grad school. Um, so we lived in Pittsburgh, had a great time. They thought they were in university as well. And I had a lot of energy. Um,
Didn't we all back then?
I know it's insane if I could have a little bit of it. And then with my next one, I was in Australia and it definitely hit me a little differently. I didn't quite have as much energy, but it wasn't as stark as
Now.
being 48 with an 8-year-old. And I find the guilt is a lot stronger because I'm not as prone to wanting to get on the floor.
Like, can we
And
stay up at this table level?
yeah, yeah, can we just not? And, financially, we're better off than we were with the first.
Good.
That was, when the two were little, it was like, okay, we can't afford shoes for everybody. So one person gets shoes. Um, we're definitely in a different place now. But you can just feel it in your body. We're going to bed almost at the same time. So it's, it's just, it changes the way your brain chemistry works, obviously. And so he's dealing with a perimenopausal mother and he's in second grade.
Yeah. And you had talked about too about like working as well, like so being like going through this and working. And so what's your experience been there?
It so at that same time, so about 2 years ago, I I was full-time teaching and I taught English and loved it. It was just my favorite thing. I loved it. I started late in life, just about the time Bryson came to us through foster care. I changed careers. I do that every 10 years. I don't know what's wrong with me. Um, so I was doing exactly what I wanted to do. It was easy. We had fostered at the time, we had 5 kids,
Um,
and I started a new career. And it wasn't hard. It didn't feel hard. And then 2 years ago, my father-in-law had moved in with us. He'd been here for a while and he had dementia. And one of my kids was really struggling in school, and I pulled her and I homeschooled and I stopped working. And then I went back a year ago after he passed, and I started to realize I didn't have the stamina I had. And I was only doing long term subbing. So for a year, which is pretty common at schools, we had a lot of pregnant teachers. So I taught middle school and high school in 1 year, which was kind of fun. Um, but the end of this year, I I got Lyme disease, and that was it. And I, of course, because I'm 48, and obviously I'm about to change careers again, because why not? Um, but it was like I could tell before I left, I sat more, and I was a pacer. Like when I was teaching, I was back and forth. I taught theater as well, and I could put on huge 100 kids performances, um, a couple of them a year, and I don't think I could anymore.
you're like now thinking about it makes me tired.
Yeah, I just the energy and the way my brain works, I don't remember things quite as well. Trying to juggle all of that, I don't want to.
Yeah.
And that's hard because it was like all I ever wanted to do was teach. But now, and it started the same time I got that tumor and all of the weird other medical problems that came with it, um, which I think is again contribute to perimenopause.
Mm.
Uh, but yeah, the one thing I wanted to do in my entire life was teach, and I don't think I'm going back.
Is there anything like, and that sounds like it was a surprise. That's a surprise to you.
Yes,
Yeah.
incredibly so.
Yeah. Now you have to be like, oh, what's next? Which is also a transition, right? Like menopause is a transition. Like years
Yes.
of transition. Parenthood, parenting is because your kids get older and then they leave, and it's like that's all transitions. I feel like you're an expert at transitions.
And I hate them.
It's like
I'm
what happens. It's like the thing you hate the most is the thing that keeps coming back.
I'm hoping in my next life that I will have learned this lesson.
Right? You're like, you
Um,
got this. You aced this one. Great job. A+. Now you get to move. Now you get to ascend to something else.
I my goal is to like really knock it out of the park this time and not.
Not have to relive some of the same lessons. Is there
Yeah.
anything you wish you knew earlier about this phase of life? Like I know I kind of didn't know anything going into this.
I wish I knew it would just hit you and you would feel isolated and no one would listen.
Mm.
I sorry, I just want to make sure my kid isn't getting run over. We're
Right, yeah,
we're
that would
on
be
a
good.
we're on 10 acres and there is a driveway and it's gravel and you would hear someone coming, but still.
Yeah.
Um the medical stuff, going and saying my heart is acting weird. And they're like, "Oh, no, no, no. It's fine." Like, "No, something's wrong."
Yeah.
And I wore a heart monitor for 2 weeks. And I know they thought I was crazy. And it came back that I did have an
Mm.
arrhythmia. I had a couple of different things happening. And almost the same day, my girlfriend called and said, "Oh, they put me on this medication for my heart." I'm like, "That's the same medication I'm on." And she's like, "Yeah, it was just kind of out of the blue." And the more we talked, we realized where we were in our lives was the same. And I've talked to other people and they've all said the same thing. This, like, it came out of nowhere. I didn't have problems and now I do.
Right. Yeah, I mean, yeah. So it's like, yeah, nobody tells you that. It was like, hey,
No one,
you have a
it was
problem.
like I was healthy, kind of.
What would you tell someone just sort of maybe getting into this age of life?
Trust yourself. You've been in your skin for 48, 49, 50, whatever age you are. Uh, you know your body. You know when things aren't right. Um, and there are a lot of doctors out there, and even female doctors, and that got me really bad. I was floored, that will blow you off
Yeah.
and say, "Take medication," or, "Oh, we can try this, but I don't think it's an issue." And you're like, "Feel like it is."
Mhm.
Um, yeah, you have to advocate for yourself,
Yeah.
which in our this day and age, um, and I've talked to plenty of my girlfriends about this. We shouldn't, as women, have to look at a doctor and say, "No, you need to listen to me.
Right.
I know what I'm talking about." And I really feel like in the last year, if I could tell myself and someone else that you're not crazy and that just keep trying,
Yeah.
find someone who listens and find the help, because it's hard. It is. And you do feel isolated because you're like, no one wants to talk about the fact that you smell a little more,
Yeah.
or you're putting on weight and you can't eat like you used to.
Or that you're tired or
And your brain,
yeah, or why
there's
we're
no,
forgetting stuff. Why did I walk into this room?
yes. And then your eyesight, I'm like, ooh,
So many things. So many.
it is. It is. And to not have the medical profession um, understand it
Yeah.
seems insane.
Yeah.
How do you, after this long, women have been around for quite a while.
Yeah. Yeah. I know it's amazing. And that was probably like the biggest thing that I learned was like, oh, they don't get trained on this.
No,
And if they do, they get trained about hot flashes.
yes.
Like
And
that's
there's
it.
so much more.
Yeah. Yeah. And so that's like that was probably the biggest surprise for me. It's just like, oh, I didn't realize, but at least there are now doctors that specialize in it. Unfortunately, a lot of times they don't take insurance. And so
Yeah.
it's like there are like telehealth, I think is it's getting more popular as well with like so I know a friend of mine, her insurance does take a telehealth version, which is great. My insurance does, I go to see somebody out of pocket. I am grateful that I have the means to do that. And but I also know that not everybody does. And so that's, I check that privilege of mine of like, oh yeah, like I have that ability and not everybody does. And otherwise you have to keep advocating and advocating or keep switching doctors that are within your network, hoping that somebody will listen.
I am on, so I went the route of tried my first doctor and it didn't work. And she was like, no, you're not. Your period, you're still getting your period. I'm like, they last 2 weeks,
Mm-hmm.
longer sometimes, and then nothing for 2 months.
Right,
Obviously, this is not normal. And
right.
she's like, oh, yeah, it is. Blah, 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 blah. I'm like, great, thank you. I went to my OBGYN and she's like, well, let's try you on progesterone. And I'm like, that's good. I know that that's your body does need that. And then I went to a nutritionalist. And that's kind of, I feel more heard
Yeah.
by the nutritionalist. And I've went all female. These are all female doctors. And she's like, she seems like for me, she's more understanding. And again, insurance. I have insurance. I'm very lucky. It's state, which isn't great, but I felt heard.
Yeah.
And it was less about doing all the drugs, all the things that they want to put you on, um, and more about the things you eat and your gut biome and balancing your hormones that way, which I don't, I obviously I take medication. Um, so I'm not against it, but I think I got so tired of the runaround.
Yeah. When it's such a personal decision, right? It's like talk to, like once you find a physician that you trust or somebody that you trust, and then like working through, okay, what's going to work for me? Because what works for me might not work for you, and vice versa.
And it's hard when you kind of feel betrayed almost
Yeah, you feel
by
like,
other women.
yeah,
You're like, why do you not listen to what I'm saying?
mm, because
I
you only
obviously,
let me have a 15-minute appointment. So
right,
if it doesn't
right.
fit into this box that I've put it in, I don't,
Yeah.
like I don't have time to spend with you, right?
And that's kind of what you need. You
Yeah,
need someone to say, okay, you're not crazy.
yeah,
What you have going on is valid. And, those are those, as a teacher, those are, you don't like what I'm saying? Um, we're trained to say those things,
yeah,
but we don't say them to each other.
yeah.
Your feelings are valid. I understand where you're coming from. You're right. Everybody learns differently. Everyone comes into this world with different issues.
Yeah, everyone has a different menopause experience.
Yes,
Yeah.
I have found though there is some kind of overlapping with at least with my girlfriends. And because I started parenting again with a little guy, I'm in a little bit of a different stage. But you know, every I'll message my girlfriends and I'll be like, "Hey, hot flashes are evil." And then I get like a string of like, "Hell yeah." And there's
Like, thank you for validating me.
yes. And we're all kind of feeling mad
Mm,
and isolated by it. Like, because it's like, I could do this a year ago. Why is this hard now?
right. Yeah. Yeah. Because it is, everything's like a change. And then you're like, oh, I don't know. And then you're like, is it this? Is it something else? I don't know. You know,
Yep.
so here it is. Anything else you want to share before we wrap up?
I don't know. I think it's just that I think what you're doing is wonderful. Having conversations um and being honest about it, because like you said, you see a lot of hot flashes and they're always like joke about it on TV, in the movies. I know that there are more conversations happening with celebrities and things like that as they've hit it now. Um, but I think it's important that we're represented,
Yeah.
um, and not made to feel like, you know, this is something you kind of keep behind doors. No one needs to know. Yeah. Oh no. You're getting older.
Yeah. Yeah.
How this is bad. Like, I don't know. I
Yeah.
don't feel old,
I don't
but
either. I mean, like some days,
yes. Yeah. I
like
mean,
for the most
yes.
part, I'm like, I'm still 32, right? Like,
Yes. 100%. Yes. And I think when I thought about menopause, I thought they were really old.
right. Well, I mean, if I look at like the Golden Girls is a good example. Like, I think they were not that old, but they looked so much older than like what I
Yes.
feel at this age, right? Or
Yes.
I find I notice it when I watch Jeopardy and like the contestants don't get any like pop culture stuff right from like the 90s or 2000s. Like the other day, the answer was Amy Mann. Nobody knew the answer. And I'm
Oh my
like,
gosh.
I thought like it's just me and Ken Jennings. They're like, how do you not know who Amy Mann is? Now, granted,
That
there might be some
happens.
people who don't know who she is, and I get that just because they don't listen to that kind of music, that's fine. But like,
Then really that's their problem. They
right.
really should.
Yeah. So anyway, well, thank you so much for sharing your story and for agreeing to be here. Thanks anyone who's watching or listening. Certainly feel free to share, feel free to comment. If you're interested in being a guest, feel free to reach out to me. Happy to continue to have these conversations with just real everyday ladies having these conversations. And I hope everyone has a wonderful rest of their day.